Hello, today I'm going to be unboxing and giving you a first look at the ASUS ROG STRIX Z790-E gaming Wi-Fi. And this motherboard is going to be compatible with Intel's upcoming 13th gen Raptor Lake processors, as well as the current 12th gen Alder Lake processors. The motherboard is currently available for pre-order in the UK for just under £560, so let's go ahead and get it unboxed and take a closer look at it. So this is everything that comes in the box with our motherboard. So we've got our user guide, some stickers, some information about ASUS web storage, a thank you card and an ROG keychain. We've got a graphics card holder, two SATA cables, one with a right angle connector, one with a straight connector, and then we've got two fan brackets. This fan bracket is for our Ddr5 and it will support 40, 50 or 60mm fans, and this one's for the VRM and it will support 40mm fans. We've got our Wi-Fi antenna. We've got a range of accessories for our M.2 drives. We've got some Q latches, some rubber pads and a heat pad, and we've also got some cable ties. Taking a closer look at the motherboard, starting off at the bottom, working from left to right. First of all, we've got a HD audio connector, then we've got a Thunderbolt add-in card header and two ARGB connectors. Just above this, we've got an alternative PCI mode switch, which allows you to switch the PCI signal from the CPU between Gen 3 and Gen 4. So by default, it's set to auto with the lever all the way to the left-hand side. If you move it into the middle, it'll be in Gen 4 mode and the LED beside it will light up green. Moving it all the way over to the right-hand side switches it to Gen 3 mode, and the LED will light up yellow. Then we've got a system fan header followed by two USB 2.0 headers. Next to that, we've got a temperature sensor, another two system fan headers, and then we've got our system panel header, which includes our front panel connectors, power LED, speaker and chassis intrusion header. Working up the right hand side of the motherboard, first of all we've got a right angled USB 3.2 Gen 1 header followed by four SATA ports, and then another USB 3.2 Gen 1 header which is forward facing. We've then got a USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 Type-C front panel connector which supports up to 30 watt PD 3.0 fast charge. We've then got our 24-pin ATX power connector, a start button, a postcode screen and LEDs to help troubleshoot any issues during startup. Working along the top of the motherboard, we've got a 4-pin 12V RGB connector and a 3-pin 5V ARGB connector, giving us a total of 3 ARGB connectors on the motherboard. Next to that, we've got a CPU over voltage jumper, which allows you to set a higher CPU voltage for a flexible overclocking system. With the jumper in its current position in pins 1 and 2, this setting is disabled, and you simply move it over to pins 2 and 3 to enable it. We've then got three CPU fan headers for our AIO pump, CPU fan and CPU opt. And then at the top left of the motherboard, we've got two 8-pin EPS power connectors. We've got another two system fan headers just above our first M.2 slot, giving us a total of 5 system fan headers on this motherboard. The motherboard features 18+1 power stages and has massive heat sinks with an integrated I/O cover connected with an L-shaped heat pipe over the VRM. In the middle of the motherboard, we've got our LGA 1700 socket, and because this is the same socket used on the Z690 motherboards, should you wish, you're going to be able to use a 12th gen processor with this motherboard. Another thing that ASUS have carried over from their Z690 motherboards to ensure we've got backward compatibility is the mounting holes. If you look closely at these, rather than one hole, it's actually two different holes. One is for LGA 1700 and one is for LGA 1200. So this should ensure the motherboard is compatible with most coolers out of the box. The motherboard features 4 Ddr5 slots and it can accommodate up to a maximum of 128GB of RAM at 7200 MHz overclocked. The motherboard has 3x16 size PCIe slots. The top one is a Gen 5 slot, while the bottom two are Gen 4 slots. The top Gen 5 slot will run in x16 mode, provided you don't have a Gen 5 M.2 SSD installed in the top slot. If you do, it reduces down to x8 mode. The bottom two Gen 4 PCIe slots both support by 4 modes, and they come from the chipset, while the top Gen 5 slot comes directly from the CPU. You'll notice that the top PCIe slot is reinforced and it features ASUS's Q release. So there's a little button over to the right hand side of the motherboard, and when you press it, it releases the clip on the top slot, which is really useful if you've got a large graphics card and air cooler and can't actually reach the clip. We've got 5 M.2 slots on the motherboard, so I'll go ahead and remove the heatsinks to give you a better look at things. So our top M.2 slot is a PCIe Gen 5x4 slot, while all the other 4 slots support Gen 4x4 speeds. The bottom slot also supports SATA drives. PCIe lanes for the top 2 slots come from the CPU, while the bottom 3 slots come from the chipset. It's great to see the motherboard uses Q latches for securing the M.2 SSDs, which makes installing your drives straightforward and fast. Taking a look at the rear I/O, as you'd expect with a motherboard in this price point, it comes with an integrated I/O shield. So we've got DisplayPort 1.4 and HDMI 2.1 ports. We've then got a BIOS flashback and clear CMOS buttons. We've got 4 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, followed by 5 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports. The top Type C port is a USB 3.2 Gen 2 port supporting speeds of 10 gigabit per second, while the bottom one is a USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 port supporting speeds of 20 gigabits per second. We've then got another USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port and a 2.5 gigabit LAN port. We've got the antennas for our Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2. And then we've got our gold-plated audio connectors for our 7.1 HD surround sound. The 2 optional fan brackets that come with the motherboard are secured using the same screw that will hold the motherboard to the case. The smaller bracket, which supports a 40mm fan, is for cooling the VRM, while the larger bracket, which can support either a 40, 50 or 60mm fan, is for cooling the Ddr5. So I absolutely love the aesthetics of this motherboard, and with all the features it contains, you should have no problem getting the most out of your brand new 13th gen Raptor Lake processor. So I'm really looking forward to doing a full build guide with this motherboard, and once my new processor arrives, you'll be seeing this in one of the builds on the channel very shortly. So if you have enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and if you're not currently subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button as well. Thanks for watching.